Here are a few laws that express the idea that the experience of slavery and liberation should be the wellspring for moral action. It should be the impetus for moral action. Exodus 22:20, you shall not wrong a stranger or oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. 23:9, you shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the feelings of the stranger, having yourselves been strangers in the land of Egypt. And Leviticus 19 contains a similar exhortation not to wrong a stranger who resides with you, but love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Likewise in Deuteronomy, in 5, this is the Decalogue in Deuteronomy, which is talking about Sabbath observance and ensuring that all in your abode rest, you, your son, your daughter, your male or female slave, your ox, your ass, or any of your cattle, any stranger in your settlements, so that your male and female slave may rest as you do. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord God freed you from there. Also, for the Lord your God is God supreme, and Lord supreme, the great, the mighty, and the awesome God, who shows no favor and takes no bribe, takes no bride also, but takes no bribe, but upholds the cause of the fatherless and the widow, and befriends the stranger, providing him with food and clothing. So you too must befriend the stranger. You were strangers in the land of Egypt. We have two rationales there. One is the explicit rationale of imitatio Dei. This is what I do, and this is what you should do. And there are more, many of them referring to the Exodus in Egypt, and others referring to the notion of imitatio Dei. So it's also illuminating to compare the ancient Near Eastern and the biblical legal materials in terms of the concern for the disadvantaged, the elimination of social class distinctions, and a trend towards humanitarianism. Greenberg notes that the Torah's concern for the disadvantage of society is quite marked in the actual laws themselves. Many of the extra-biblical legal collections pay homage to this idea in their prologues. Doesn't always seem to be appearing, however, in the actual terms of these collections. Now, these collections are incomplete. We don't have everything, and again, it may be another literary genre that accomplished some of that work in that culture. The Torah laws, and also the laws in those collections very often, despite the prologue's rhetoric, that they bring justice to the disadvantaged and so on, many of the laws clearly serve the interests of an upper class. Okay, that's the more important point. They clearly serve the interests of an upper class. The Torah laws do not contain all the same distinctions of social class among free persons as the contemporary laws, the laws of Eshnuna, the laws of Hammurabi. These laws distinguish between punishments for crimes committed against upper class and lower class persons, not to mention slaves. So if we look at the Code of Hammurabi, there's a stretch of laws numbering 195 to about 208, something. And they're very interesting to read them all in a row. I'll hit some highlights. So if an upper class person, okay, and if an aristocrat has destroyed the eye of a member of the aristocracy, they destroy his eye. If he breaks his bone, they break his bone. But as you move down to 198, if he destroys the eye of a commoner or breaks the bone of a commoner, he pays 1 mina of silver. And if it's a slave, he pays half the value of the slave. On to 200 and 201. If he knocks out an aristocrat's tooth, they knock out his tooth. But if it's a commoner's tooth, he pays 1/3 of a mina of silver, and so on. The Hittite laws, too, there are different amounts fixed by class in the miscarriage laws, 95 and 99. The Middle Assyrian laws also distinguish between the awilum, the mushkenim, and the slave. Leviticus 24, verses 17 to 22. We have there laws of personal liability, bodily injury, assault and battery or bodily injury. And we find a clear and explicit statement to the effect that there shall be one standard for citizen and stranger alike. This is known as the principle of Talion, Lex Talionis. So reading from Leviticus. If anyone maims his fellow, right? If anyone maims his fellow, as he has done, so shall it be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The injury he inflicted on another shall be inflicted on him. You shall have one standard for stranger and citizen alike, for I, the Lord, am your God. This was a radical concept in its day, evidently. The punishment should fit the crime, no more and no less, for all free persons. Granted, slaves are not included, regardless of social class. Equality before the law. And this casts the principle of Talion, I hope, in a new light. The law of Talion, which is essentially the principle that a person should be punished according to the injury they inflicted. It's been decried as a primitive, archaic reflex of the vengeance or vendetta principle. The notion of an eye for an eye, it's usually cited or held up as typical of the harsh and cruel standards of the vengeful Old Testament God. But when you look at it in a comparative light in its legal context, we see that it's a polemic against the class distinctions that were being drawn in antecedent and contemporary legal systems, such as the Code of Hammurabi.